Okay, this is Psycho0124. This is going to be a tutorial on using the VTOL control chip. What this allows you to do is set up your space build ship to fly pretty much like a chopper, a regular helicopter inside an atmosphere, but it will automatically switch to forward flight mode once you get out into space. I'm going to go ahead and bring this one out. Okay, now hitting W here will give you forward thrust. Real easy to fly, real simple. You can use this on pretty much any ship you want. The only difference is just going to be larger values on the thruster. The chip is going to be exactly the same. So let me go ahead and land this thing and we'll take a look at it. Now again, this will make building space build ships a lot easier. I've used this on several ships now and it really just does the trick. Alright, I guess we go ahead and start from scratch. Go to Phoenix. I'm going to spawn a 2x4. Now you can use any ship you want. I'm not going to build an entire ship. There are other tutorials for that. This is just going to run you through how to set up your ship to work with the VTOL. Go over to Wire. We're going to stick a expression chip VTOL controller. I'm going to stick this right in the middle. This will be the bottom. We'll go ahead and flip it over. Now I'm going to slap a seat down on top. I'm going to easy weld that right in the middle. Balance is kind of important whenever you do anything that flies with thrusters. If you have something out of balance, it'll throw off how it flies. Now let's go ahead and drop a pod controller on here. So we're going to go down to Wire. You can use pod controller or advanced pod controller. If you're not going to be putting any accessories on this, the pod controller is fine. You just need the active and the WASD. Okay, behind this, we're going to go ahead and sit down a atmospheric probe. It's going to be under environmental controls. Atmospheric probe, there we go. Go ahead and easy weld that on. Now this thing's going to need to remain powered at all times for it to be able to fly in an atmosphere. So we're going to do a small energy cell behind it. If you have a space build ship, you're probably going to have your own energy system anyway, so no big deal. Okay. Now we'll link these up with the link tool and life support. And I'm going to link this to my power station over here, get it charged. Alright, now next step. Let's go ahead and link up the pod controller. Right-click the controller, right-click that. And we're going to do Wire Advanced. Come over here and see what kind of inputs it needs. It wants W from our pod controller. That's W. We're also going to do A. We're also going to give it S. And D. It's also going to want active from the pod controller. There we go. Now the last thing this chip is going to want is gravity. We'll take that from our atmospheric probe. And make sure your probe is on, otherwise you'll end up with a sled. It'll figure it's 0G and just give you forward thrust. Alright, step one, we're going to need some wire thrusters. Now these are going to bear most of the weight of your space build ship, so these are going to be the strongest thrusters you got. I'm going to go ahead and do 230 in the front. We have a little less weight up here. And we're going to do maybe 260 for the back. Alright, now these are going to get wired up to, grab that, sup thrust. This is the supplementary thrust. This is a main thrust that holds you up. When these come on, you want the ship to be pretty much weightless. So we'll take a look at it and see how it goes. Alright, drop that. Now we need to balance this, make sure it's okay. We don't want it to rise up like that. But you see how it's staying pretty level, that means we got a good balance. So we'll hop out. Now we're going to be adding a little more weight with all these other thrusters, so we'll go ahead and balance it later. Alright, our next step, we're going to need some more thrusters. These are going to be a lot weaker. We'll do one at 120. And these will be for the fronts. These are going to be our V thrust, or vertical thrust. We'll do these a little bit stronger. We'll put these at, say, 130. Okay. Now the V thrust is, of course, going to wire up to the vertical thrust. Alright, now what we should have is, if we let off, it should just barely hang around. We can hit W, cause it to rise. We don't have any maneuvering yet, but everything's looking pretty good. Alright, the next step is we're going to need some yaw. Now these are going to be real weak. We'll set these at about 25 or so. So we'll go ahead and pop these down on the corners. Just one on each corner. Real simple. For a larger ship, just make sure they're front left, front right, or rear left, rear right. And these are going to get wired right up to the control chip again. So this is rear left, and it'll be yaw RL for rear left. This is rear right. It should be yaw RR. This is front left, so it'll be yaw FL. This is front right. That'll be FR. Alright, so we should have basic yaw. Now see, it's gotten a little heavier, it doesn't come off the ground. There we go. Now, we're also going to need forward thrust. This thing is supposed to work in space as well. So we'll make these about 500. There's plenty of thrust. Stick this on right here. And these are going to be wired to forward thrust. I think it's abbreviated F thrust. Okay, we got that. Now another neat little trick with this is the Malawar's air brake tool. The source engine is kind of picky about props. It gets a little jittery sometimes. The air brake tool just tends to calm everything down a little bit. We're going to set it pretty low value. About 10 is plenty. If you're having trouble controlling it, raise it up a little bit. The most I'd ever want to use is maybe 30. So we'll put one of these at each corner. This will just kind of stabilize everything, make it easier and more fun to fly. So we got 4 of those. And we got forward thrust, supplementary thrust, and vertical thrust. Okay. The next thing we're going to need is just some standard thrusters. These are not wire thrusters. These are just going to be for your regular pitch and roll over on your number pad. So we'll do these at about 200 or so. Maybe a little less than that. We'll do 100. Okay. Push 5, pull on 2. So when I push 5, I want it to nose down, so this will push the tail end up. We're going to reverse these. So push on 2. There we go. Now for the roll, I'm going to set this a little higher, about 130. Okay, push on 1. So I hit 1. I want the right side to rise over here. Now we reverse them. 3. I want this to push on 3. There we go. Alright, we should be pretty set to go. Now if I hit W, it should rise up. Now you see how the nose is coming up just a little bit. That means that the front end is a little too strong, or the back end is a little too weak. So what we could do with that is just adjust the thrusters. Now here's a real easy way to balance all this. Raise it up about 50 feet or so. Press R followed by E real quick. That'll release it and you'll hop in the seat. Now watch how it behaves on the ground. See how the tail drops and the nose rises? That's because we need to weaken these front thrusters just a little bit for the supplementary thrust. So we're going to go over to wire. Thruster. These are a little bit too strong, so we'll make these about, we'll try 215 or so. Most of this is in the tweaking. Once you get it good and tweaked out, it'll behave itself real well. Remember, this has to be the last step whenever you build a ship. There we go. It's stand nice and level all the way down. I could bring it up a couple more, but I'm not going to tweak with it.